The Colombian government met Farc dissidents as part of the peace process in the South American nation. Argentine Vice President Cristina Fernandez attorneys began their final allegations before the federal court regarding the Vialidad case. And Russia rejects accusations of alleged war crimes in Ukraine, saying Kiev is trying to stage a rerun of Bucha events. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Colombia's Peace Commissioner, Iván Danilo Rueda, met with a representation of dissident groups of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia in a possible step towards peace talks. According to a statement issued by both sides, the meeting took place in the southern region of Caquetá, aimed at an exploratory gathering to assess the possibility of initiating peace talks in the framework of the total peace policy pursued by the President Gustavo Petro. Both parties agreed to issue a joint statement as soon as possible announcing the ceasefire to avoid further damage to Colombian families and to ensure a third-party presence to guarantee a truthful process. The Colombian capital of Bogotá celebrated its popular Jazz in the Park festival after near 3-year suspensions due to COVID-19 pandemic. The 2-day festival has grown in popularity since its start in 1996. International artists performed as well as local talents. The event, held outdoors and free of charge, has become a cultural opportunity to expand musical tastes, acknowledge local authorities, held seminars timed to coincide with the festival, offering anyone who's interested a deeper look at this music genre and its evolution in Colombia.
Everybody begins to get to know the music. Those who are not so well versed also become enchanted by it, and then it promotes consumption. I always like to come to the jazz festival to get to know new talents. It is always that window to get to know new people and innovative new sounds and new artists.
And residents of Asunción Mita, a municipality in Guatemala's border with El Salvador, voted against the construction of a Canadian gold and silver mine amid fears it will cause pollution. The process was convened by local government authorities under the supervision of a dozen organizations that acted as observers, including 4 Salvadoran organizations. 87.98% of more than 8,000 people who went to the polls voted against Bluestone Resources' open-pit mine. Bluestone Resources brought the Cerro Blanco project in 2017 from fellow Canadian Gold Corp for $18 million. However, the mine has not started operations due to the change from underground to open-pit mining. Environmental organizations oppose the Cerro Blanco project, arguing it will contaminate local water and forests. The Attorney General's Office of Paraguay reported it has received over 2,300 complaints of child sexual abuse from January to August of this year. The entity informed that during 2022, it filed a total of 2,380 out of a total of 3,860 crimes against children and adolescents in the country that had been registered. According to the document, sexual abuse, mistreatment, and child pornography are the most frequent ones. The Public Prosecutor's Office also reported 934 cases of mistreatment under guardianship and 546 cases of rape during this period. It also negatively highlighted the more than 18,000 victims of sexual abuse attended during the last 7 years. Now we move on to other topics. Category 1 Hurricane Fiona has entered the Dominican Republic after leaving a trail of destruction in Puerto Rico. Fiona entered the Dominican Republic with winds of 140 kilometers per hour over Cape San Rafael when heavy rains and intense swell are reported. Hours before, the Dominican Republic authorities declared a national emergency and the forecast for the first hours after Fiona entered the territory. According to the U.S. National Hurricane Center, heavy rains and outer bands of Fiona will still affect Puerto Rico, as flooding and landslides are expected. Also, a forecast point to hurricane conditions in Turks and Caicos on Tuesday, as well as in Bahamas. On Monday, aftershocks struck southeastern Taiwan after a 6.9 quake struck the island of Sunday afternoon. The aftershocks, including a 5.5 magnitude quake, were most felt on south-southwest of the coastal city of Hualien, at a depth of 13 kilometers. On Sunday, the strongest quake killed one person and injured about 150 others, teared up roads, and tore down a handful of houses in the town of Yuli. 4 others were rescued from a collapsed building, while authorities said a total of 146 suffered injuries. Taiwan is regularly hit by quakes and must cause minimal damage, but the island also has a long history of deadly disasters. In September 1999, a 7.6 magnitude quake killed around 2,400 people in the deadliest natural disaster in the island's history. Nine million people have been told to evacuate their homes as Japan is hit by one of the worst typhoons the country has ever seen. Nanmadol hit the Kyushu island on Sunday morning, and it is set to reach Honshu, Japan's largest island, in the coming days. The super typhoon has killed 2 people and injured almost 90. Tens of thousands of people remained in emergency shelters, and almost 350,000 homes are without power. Transport and business have been disrupted as the rest of the country prepares for extensive flooding and landslides. The storm has brought gusts of up to 234 kilometers per hour in some areas. Forecasts showed 400 millimeters of rain in 24 hours. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Argentine Vice President Cristina Fernandez's attorneys began their final allegations before the federal court regarding the Vialidad roadworks case. Local media reported that attorneys Carlos Beraldi and Ariel Yernoboy will present their allegations before the court during the week and will conclude with a petition for acquittal. Cristina Fernandez faces a request of a 12-year prison sentence and disqualification for life to hold public office by federal prosecutors Diego Luciani and Sergio Mola for illegal association and fraudulent administration. Fernandez, the Kirchner, plans to speak before judges Jorge Gorini and Andres Basso and Rodrigo Jimenez Uriburu in use of her right to exercise her own defense for her profession as a lawyer, something that she will also do virtually. On Monday, Brazil's presidential candidate, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, participated in a meeting with leaders and former candidates of the Workers' Party. The meeting took place in a hotel in the south of Sao Paulo and was attended by 8 former candidates who expressed their support to Lula da Silva's candidacy for the 2022 presidential elections. Lula da Silva described this meeting as symbolic, after affirming that it reflects the will of the people to work to recover the country's democracy. For his part, the vice presidential candidate in Lula da Silva's candidacy, Geraldo Alckmin, considered the event as a historic event, while stressing that the purpose of this meeting is to strengthen the climate of the broad front around the candidacy for the Workers' Party and to expand the offensive for the useful vote that will make possible a victory in the first round. We move to other topics. Since 2020, nearly 5,000 Ecuadorian children have been abandoned at the border between the United States and Mexico. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Office, the children leave Ecuador with their parents and close relatives, exposing themselves to long journeys in unsafe conditions. Then they are handed over to coyotes, who are paid up to $25,000 to cross them through the border. Most children are abandoned at the U.S. border to make sure they are accepted into U.S. territory. Data revealed that in 2020, U.S. Customs and Border authorities found at least 625 minors, around 3,000 in 2021 and 654 so far in 2022. European Union countries could be banned from restricting the flow of critical products and services in times of crisis, according to new emergency powers proposed by the European Commission. The legislation, which needs to be negotiated and amended by the European Parliament and Member States, was proposed by the Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Breton. The Single Market Emergency Instrument empowered the Commission to order EU states to reorganize supply chains and increase supplies of relevant goods as quickly as possible, including expanding or repurposing existing production capacities or setting up new ones and placing such goods on the market. The Spanish non-governmental organization Proactiva Open Arms rescued more than 300 people seeking to cross the central Mediterranean Sea to Europe in unsafe boats. The rescue ship Open Arms 1 remained at sea and is seeking a safe port for the rescued people, including some who need medical attention and many who are suffering dehydration. In all, the ship performs 3 rescues in 24 hours. In the largest one, the Open Arms picked up 294 people, mostly Egyptians, from an overcrowded boat in waters south of Malta. Before that, they rescued 59 asylum seekers from Syria, Egypt, Sudan, and Eritrea from an oil platform in Tunisian waters. Britain and the world said a final goodbye to Queen Elizabeth II at a state funeral on Monday. The Queen's funeral drew presidents and kings, princes and prime minister, and crowds that mass along the streets of London to honor the longest reigning monarch after 70 years in the throne. After escorting the Queen's coffin to Westminster Abbey, the royal family joined 2,000 dignitaries in the state funeral for an hour-long service of tributes and prayers that culminated in a 2-minute silence and the singing of the national anthem. King Charles III and his siblings, as well as the Queen's grandsons, Princes William and Harry, then joined the solemn procession behind her casket, with huge crowds lining down London streets. Her Majesty's coffin arrived at Windsor, where she will be buried alongside her late husband, Prince Philip, after a communal service attended by the royal family and other selected guests. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Deputy Chief of Staff of the Presidential Executive Office of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Peskov, on Monday rejected accusations of alleged war crimes in Ukraine. The Kremlin spokesperson reiterated Moscow's absolute condemnation to statements made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky when he accused Russia of committing crimes against humanity in the northeastern Kyiv. Peskov assured the Kremlin will defend the truth and will not allow a repetition of the same scenario as in Bucha. Previously, the head of the Kharkiv region, Vialidad, stated that Kyiv will try to repeat the same setup as in Bucha, but now in the city of Izium, which was suffered numerous challenges from Ukraine in the last week. In Syria, the vote counting process for the local administration's council's elections began this Monday. The head of the Supreme Judicial Committee for Elections, Judge Chancellor Jihad Murad, said all votes are counted in the presence of the candidates' representatives. He confirmed that all the requirements of the electoral process were secured, including logistical supplies, publications, and envelopes. The Judge Chancellor also stated that nearly 60,000 candidates competed for 19,000 seats in the administrative units in the country's provinces. The number of polling stations reached more than 7,000, an increase of about 1,200 centers from the 2018 elections, aimed at facilitating the electoral process. And protesters scuffled with Lebanese security forces on Monday outside the Justice Ministry in Beirut, demanding the release of 2 people arrested last week during a bank heist. Monday's protests outside the Justice Ministry demanded the release of Abdul Rahman Zakaria and Mohammed Rustam, who have been held since Wednesday after they broke into a bank branch and helped a depositor take her trapped savings to pay for her sister's cancer treatment. Anger with local leaders and lenders who have been imposing informal capital controls, including limits on ATM withdrawals for nearly 3 years, has increased in recent weeks, with some depositors storming bank branches and taking their trapped savings by force. The Lebanese government has implemented few of the IMF's 5-point list that includes restructuring the financial sector, implementing fiscal reforms, restructuring the external public debt, as well as anti-corruption and anti-money laundering efforts. In Nigeria, the death toll from the Lassa fever has risen to 171, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, announced on Sunday. There have been a total of 917 confirmed cases, with over 6,000 suspected cases recorded since early this year. From September 5th to 11th alone, the NCDC confirmed 8 new cases and 1 death. So far, 25 states have reported at least 1 confirmed case in 102 local government areas in the most populous African country. With the death toll rising to 171, the case fatality rate was 18.6%, lower than in the one for the same period last year, which was 23.3%. Humans usually become infected with the Lassa virus throughout exposure to food or household items contaminated with urine or feces of infected mastomys rats. In some cases, Lassa fever has similar symptoms to malaria, appearing between 1 and 3 weeks after exposure to the virus. In mild cases, the disease causes fever, fatigue, weakness, and headaches. Nigeria's government remains committed to lifting some 100 million people out of poverty by 2030 through its investments and the creation of more jobs, among other initiatives. Representatives of the Nigerian executive recently announced the creation of the National Health Insurance Law, which includes the protection of the informal sector. Among them, artisans and young workers added that a data bank known as the Labor Market Information System has been created. The United Nations also signed a partnership agreement with the Nigerian Labour Congress to achieve the framework of cooperation for sustainable development and the labor agenda in the country. And this September 24th, TeleSUR invites you to see a brand new documentary titled Alex Saab, a Kidnapped Diplomat. The audiovisual features testimonies from lawyers, experts, and family members of Alex Saab, including his wife, Camilla Fabry. All of them will reveal details never known before about the first kidnapping of a diplomat in the history of the world. It also compiles the actions taken by the U.S. government towards countries and individuals to ambush Saab in Cape Verde. Authorities in the island country imprisoned the Venezuelan high government official without an arrest warrant against him. Don't miss the documentary Alex Saab, a Kidnapped Diplomat, only on TeleSUR. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. And you can also follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.